So this story happened a few years ago. My friend Allison and I decided to go down to Tennessee for the Bonnaroo Music Festival. And we decided to get there by bus, which was an absolutely terrible idea. Don't ever do it. The trip took forever, and by the time we got there, we were extremely exhausted and kind of people-weary because of all the unsavory characters that we met along the way. But as soon as we got to Tennessee, we were absolutely blown away because everybody was so friendly. The first place that we went to was this little barbecue restaurant on the side of the road. And as soon as we finished our meal, the owner came up to us and he told us we were welcome to stay there for as long as we wanted to. And then he kept on bringing us more and more refills of this delicious homebrewed iced tea. And then we asked our waitress for directions to the liquor store because we wanted to pick up some wine for the festival. And she said, "Oh, no, please just wait till my shift is over and I'll drive you there." So 4 days later, when the festival ended, we thought to ourselves, we're in the friendliest place on earth. Hitchhiking is definitely the way to go here, right? So we started asking around, and fairly quickly we found this really lovely local couple, and they said, "Yeah, sure, we'd be happy to drive you. There's just one thing, there's not too much room in the car." They weren't kidding. When I opened the door to get in, the entire backseat of their car was covered in stuff. There were folded tents and umbrellas and chairs and clothes and just every festival leftover you can imagine was lining the backseat of this vehicle. And there's 2 feet of space between all this stuff and the roof of the car. So I'm well, all right, yeah, I'll just get in, fucking head first. And so I find myself in the back seat and I'm extremely uncomfortable. My arm is sort of leaning on this food cooler and my leg is propped up against something, I'm not even sure what. And the rest of me is just propped up in space and I'm holding on with my other arm to the roof of the car just to stay up. And my friend Allison goes in right after me, finds an equally uncomfortable position, and off we go. And we quickly realized that not only are we extremely uncomfortable and probably quite unsafe, we're also going to be here for a really long time because there's 500,000 people trying to leave Bonnaroo at the same time. And so we're just stuck dead in gridlock. And so we decided to kind of get the conversation going, pass the time. And so the couple is sitting in the front, the lady's driving, and her partner sitting in the passenger seat. And he sparks up a conversation. We told him that we're from Toronto, and he asks us what we do when we're here. And my friend Allison worked at the time at this little sustainable butcher shop in Toronto. Now, if you've ever met anybody who works in the butchering community, at least in Toronto, you'll know that all they talk about is meat. They love talking about meat and preparing meat and what kind of meat they're making and just everything to do with the meat consuming process. So this guy gets really excited about this, and he turns around and he goes, "Oh, have either of you girls ever tried squirrel brains?" So naturally we say no, because they're kind of cute and they have the little hands thing going for them, and they're rodents and probably mad squirrel disease. And but he's this guy's not deterred by this at all. In fact, he sees in this this newfound opportunity to educate us in the way of squirrel hunting and squirrel preparing and squirrel eating. So as you know, squirrels are quite small. So apparently to get your fill of squirrel brains, you need a good 10 to 15 squirrels. But do not fret, because I will share with you the highlights of his hunting tips, and I will teach you how to hunt squirrel in 3 easy steps. So step 1 to squirrel hunting is, of course, camouflage, because you really want to blend into the squirrel environment. Step 2 to squirrel hunting is stakeout. And this is where your patience comes in. So you find yourself a really comfortable spot in the forest, you squat, you get really quiet, and you just want the squirrel to get super comfortable. Because when it gets really comfortable, it's gonna come out, and then there you are, with a .22 caliber rifle, ready to take the shot. But not in the head, because that's where the brain is, and that's what you want. And the last step to squirrel hunting is, of course, outsmarting the squirrel. And there aren't many things that you need to know about the squirrel psyche to do this successfully. A, squirrels are generally going to try to be wherever you're not. So if you're standing in front of a tree and there's a squirrel in the tree, chances are it's on the other side. And so all you really have to do is pick up like a rock or a stick or whatever's in your general vicinity that you're not particularly attached to, and just throw it to the other side. And then like this dumbass squirrel just like comes to the other side thinking you're over there, and there you are with your .22 caliber rifle, like ready to take the shot. And B, squirrels are like extremely territorial in nature. So you know that like little chattering sound that squirrels make when they eat? If they hear that sound, they're immediately gonna come out to see who is on their turf, like eating their nuts. And so you can simulate the sound to get the squirrel to come out and get all like up in your grill. You can do this by either using a squirrel call device. Yes, they are a thing. But if you don't want to invest in a squirrel call device and you don't have one readily available, you can actually MacGyver one out of the contents of your wallet. And this is how you do it. All you do is, and I brought this to demonstrate, you take 2 quarters and then you like rub them together. And I think with a bit of practice you can get like really impressive squirrel sound effects. And so squirrel call device or 2 quarters in hand, take your pick, and either way the squirrel comes out, he's like, who the fuck is out here? And then there you are with your .22 caliber rifle, ready to take the shot. So if you follow these 3 easy steps, you should have your 10 to 15 squirrels like in no time. And you are now ready to get cooking. You want to begin by decapitating your squirrels. And really all you do is like you take your little squirrel body and like a meat cleaver, and then you just like chop the fucking head off, and like they're small, so it's really not that hard. And then when you have your pile of squirrel heads, you can apparently just chuck them in the fire. So you can just like chuck them on a barbecue, and you're all ready. And it gets kind of tricky here because I don't actually remember how long it takes to cook a squirrel brain, because it wasn't the most traumatizing part of the story. What I do remember is what comes next, because there's one crucial step left in this whole shenanigan, and that is that when you have your pile of crispy squirrel heads all ready to be eaten, you still need to get the brains out. That's where the nutcracker comes in. So you take your nutcracker, you know, like the kind you use to crack walnuts at Christmas, and you take your squirrel heads one by one, and you just like crack them wide open, and then you take a teaspoon and you scoop the brains out, and you put them in a bowl. And once you've done this with all of your squirrel heads, and have successfully discarded the crushed skulls of your squirrel enemies, all you need is a pinch of salt and some cracked pepper, and you're good to go. And so this guy finishes his story, which in reality took like 20 minutes. And the car goes silent, like absolutely dead silent. And just remember that I'm like in the back of the car, stuck to the roof, so I have a fantastic vantage point. So not only can I feel my own face, which is like contorted in like a mix of disgust and disbelief, and I can also see the driver's facial expression, who you'd think would be quite immune to this kind of talk, but she's not. She's just as grossed out as my friend and I are. And after like the longest 20 seconds you can imagine, Allison finally decides to break the silence, and she goes, well, I don't think I'm gonna try it, but I'll take your word for it that it's good. At which point this guy turns around, and with the heaviest southern drawl you can imagine, he goes, I never said they were good. When we finally got to Manchester, thank you. When we finally got to Manchester, we decided to take them out for lunch. And this guy was so disturbed because his meal was undercooked. And when my friend Allison and I discussed this on the bus ride, on our very, very long bus ride back, we thought this was hilarious because, like, to us, his squirrel brain story, I guess, meant that this man had absolutely no standards as far as his meat consumption. But But I guess to him it was just like a fun regional recipe that he thought would be fun to share with a couple of hitchhikers he picked up along the way, even if it wasn't a particularly good one. Thank you.